We're now on the record. Here begins the deposition of Meyers Van. Today's date is March 3rd, 2020. Time on the video monitor is 3:06 p.m. Would the court reporter please swear in the witness?
Ma'am, if you will please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Van, my name is Clint Kelly. I represent Mary Beth here in this deposition today, and I'm taking your deposition to determine what you'll testify to at the arbitration if you're called as a witness. Have you ever testified in a deposition before?
No, sir.
All right. There are just a few rules in it. This is my opportunity to find out what you'll testify to and learn everything you know. And it's vital that we communicate clearly. So if I ask you a question and you don't understand it, you say, Mr. Kelly, please rephrase, and I'll be glad to do that, okay?
Okay.
Secondly, I'd like you to agree to answer all of my questions to the best of your knowledge and information. Will you agree to do that?
Yes, sir.
All right. Tell me where your address is.
117 Cedarwood Drive, Lebanon, Tennessee, 37087.
You married?
No.
Any children?
Yes.
How many children?
One.
How old's your child?
He'll be 9 months on the 12th.
If you don't mind, just tell me about your educational background, and what I'm interested in is where you went to high school and any subsequent education after that.
I went to Gallatin High School, and now I'm currently finishing up my bachelor's at Austin B State University.
What kind of degree are you pursuing?
Healthcare management.
When did you start at Austin P?
I started in 2012.
Okay. And do you have any type of certification or licensure in the state of Tennessee?
No.
What would you consider your title to have been at Hickory Hills at the time that Miss Meyers was a resident there?
Caregiver.
And what were the main duties and responsibilities of a caregiver back in January of 2019?
To provide care for residents.
Anything else?
Make sure that they eat, safe, use the bathroom, basically the duties of a caregiver.
Okay. Are you familiar with the recognized standard of acceptable professional practice for a caregiver in Hendersonville, Tennessee in January of 2019?
Can you rephrase that question?
Certainly. Have you heard the term recognized standard of care?
I semi-know the definition.
Okay. What do you understand the definition of the standard of care to be?
The maintain care for patients.
Anything else?
No.
Are you familiar with the standard of care for taking care of a patient like Miss Meyers back in January 2019 here in Hendersonville, Tennessee?
I'm not understanding your question.
Sure. Are you familiar or do you know what the standard of care was for taking care of a patient like Joyce Meyers here in Hendersonville, Tennessee back in January of 2019?
We didn't really have a standard of care. It's just my professional duty as a caregiver on how I come in on shift.
Okay. What was your hire date at Hickory Hills?
7/28/2018.
Was Miss Meyers a resident at Hickory Hills at the time you began working there?
Yes, sir.
Were you regularly assigned to care for Miss Meyers?
Usually, yes.
How did you know how to care for Miss Meyers and what degree of assistance she needed?
They had care plans for each of the residents.
Okay. Was there a name for the care plan?
No.
Okay. Have you heard the term in-service plan
No.
or in-service book?
No.
Have you seen the care plan for Miss Meyers?
Yes.
And where is the care plan?
Nurse's station, the front nurse's station.
Is there one care plan?
Yes. That I'm aware of, yes, at the front nurse's station.
Do you know if the care plan was signed?
No, I don't know.
Did you review the care plan in preparation for taking care of Miss Meyers?
At the beginning, once I was hired, yes.
Okay. Did you note any irregularities in the plan of care at the time you reviewed it?
I don't remember.
Did the amount of assistance required by Ms. Meyers change during the time that you cared for her? And what I mean by that is from the time you were hired until the time that she fell in January of 2019.
She recently fell before that. She broke her hip. So that was pretty much it. That fall right there that I'm aware of.
Do you know when that fall occurred?
No.
And you understand she fell once before?
Yes.
Okay. But you don't know the circumstances of that fall?
No.
Do you know if she fell more than once?
No. Other than that time.
While we're on the subject, how do you as a caregiver find out or learn whether residents have fallen at Hickory Hills?
Through rapport from other caregivers.
Okay. And is it customary for other caregivers to report to people like you and other folks whether there have been falls on the premises?
Yes.
And I suspect you rely on that, don't you, to know whether someone has fallen before?
Yes.
Now, getting back to my question, you answered it sort of. You said that she had fallen once before, but do you know whether the amount of assistance that she required changed after that first fall?
No.
If you wanted to know whether a resident had fallen more than once before, how would you find out?
I would ask a nurse or check the incident report if there are any, but mostly ask a nurse.
Would you agree in principle that it's important to know how many times a resident has fallen?
Yes.
Because that can affect the amount of care you need to give the resident, can it?
Yes.
And you count on the facility to provide you that information, don't you?
Yes.
I want you to describe Ms. Meyers prior to the incident. Let's focus on the month of January of 2019. How would you describe her personality?
And she was loving and fun, and she was so sweet. Snacky little lady. She always had peanuts and chocolate. And always just a happy little lady.
Did she appear to enjoy interacting with the staff?
She interacted with everybody. It wasn't just staff. It was other residents as well.
Could she talk?
She can talk.
Could you have a conversation with her?
All the time.
Could she feed herself?
She fed herself. She sat in the front.
Could she dress herself?
No.
Could she transfer by herself?
During her therapy, yeah.
What about outside of her therapy?
No.
Could she bathe herself?
No. Not that I'm aware of.
Could she walk?
Before the incident, but before her hip break, she could.
Okay. Could she walk in January of 2019 before she
If
fell?
you assisted her, yes. If she had assistance, yes.
Well, let me be more specific. Could she walk outside of therapy?
No, I'm saying, like, as far as therapy goes, caregivers, if we was to help her, yes, she could walk.
Was she one of the higher functioning residents at the facility?
Yes.
Do you know whether Miss Meyers at the time of admission was brought in to the facility in a wheelchair?
I don't know.
Is that usually how she got around at the facility?
Yes.
What assistance would you typically provide to Miss Meyers during your shift? And again, I want to focus on January of 2019 before she fell.
As far as usually the assistance would be to the bathroom and to get dressed for bed. That was all I provided, because anything else she did on her own.
Okay. Now going to the bathroom, is that another name for that called toileting?
Yes, toileting. I'm sorry.
All right. Describe, if you will, what assistance you provided to Miss Meyers in toileting.
I would let her stand up. She would hold the bar and stand herself up. I would pull down her brief. She would sit down, use the bathroom. Once she stood back up, I wipe, pull her brief back up, let her sit back down in her chair.
Who would take her to the bathroom?
We would, as caregivers.
Okay. So how would she notify you when she needed to go to the bathroom?
We would ask, or she would tell.
And if she wanted to go to the bathroom, would you then roll her in her wheelchair to her room?
If she was near a room, yes. If she was near the front, there's 2 bathrooms in the front that she can go to.
How many times a day did she have to go to the bathroom, usually?
During when she was on
During
shift.
my shift, or
Yeah, during your shift.
she wasn't a heavy wetter, so sometimes I could get her to go twice, once, not at all.
Sometimes I could get her to go twice, once, not at all. Okay, I need you to help me out with that. What do you mean by that?
Sometimes if I ask her, she would say she doesn't have to go, or she would have to go. It depends on if the shift before me would toilet her before I get there.
How long was your shift?
From 2 to 10.
So there were times during your 8-hour shift where she would not need to go to the bathroom. Was that the usual thing, or was that unusual?
It would just depend on the day, really.
Do you know how many times that she would need to be toileted throughout the day?
As far as my shift goes, or the entire
The whole day?
I don't know.
What was your customary shift?
At the time, 2 to 10.
And then you said you also helped her with bed, is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Walk me through the process how you would put her to bed.
I would take her to the bathroom first, and then I would get her pajamas out, change her while she's on the toilet, get up, put her back in a chair, roll her to her bed, pull her covers back, help her stand up. She always used to say we're dancing, because the way I would hold her up and we turn. So sit her down, let her pull her feet up. Sometimes I would pull them up. After her fall, I would have to put pillows under her legs and try to get her a little comfortable, and then put the covers over.
Did she have a customary bedtime?
She liked to go to bed early, so I would try to get her in bed by 7:30, no later than 8 o'clock.
And did she have a customary supper time?
Yes, we all did. So since she ate with the more functioning, they usually start dinner about 6, at the latest 6:30.
Okay. So, customarily, she would go to bed maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours after dinner?
Yes.
Would she ask you to take her to bed, or was this something routine where you just went ahead and took her because it's bedtime?
For the most part, she'll ask. She'll tell you she's tired, but sometimes I just knew she liked to go to bed early, unless she had family there.
Now, after you completed putting her in bed, doing the dance, so to speak, and you left the room, was it your customer practice to turn on the motion sensor?
Yes.
And as I understand, that motion sensor is designed to detect motion inside the room when no one else is in there except the resident, correct?
Yes.
And if that motion sensor is triggered, and I've seen the pictures, at the nursing station, a little red light comes on to tell you that the motion sensor has been triggered, correct?
If you look at the board, if it's on, it will be just red. But if it's a sensor, if it goes off, then it's blinking. That's how we know, and it makes a noise. So it sets off an alarm and it blinks to let us know which room it is.
And have you at times responded to the motion detector after patients have been put to bed?
Yes, I have.
And would you agree with me that that motion detector is sensitive enough to detect a patient rolling in bed?
Yes.
And so if a patient rolls in bed, that motion detector will go off and give you an opportunity to go in there and check on the patient. I shouldn't say patient, resident, correct?
Yes.
And are you all trained at Hickory Hills to always turn on the motion detector when you put a patient to bed?
Yes.
Do you all shut the door?
Yes.
How would you describe Miss Meyers' judgment? And I'm always focusing now on January of 2019.
Judgment as far as?
Making decisions for herself.
I'm not sure how to answer that question.
Let me put a little more meat on the bone for you. Have you reviewed records on residents where there are questionnaires about a resident's decision making or judgment?
They had dementia, so it's always a judgment call.
All right, I'm asking, that's my fault, not yours. I'm asking the right way. Have you seen in a patient's records where they have been noted to have poor decision making or poor judgment?
Yes.
I mean, y'all are trained to know whether a patient has a history of poor judgment, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know whether Miss Meyers had a history of poor judgment?
I don't know.
Did you ever look in her records to see?
Not about poor judgment, no. It doesn't really tell you about poor judgment.
What are you supposed to do if you look in the records and note in the patient's either care plan or history that they have poor judgment?
I'm not even really sure how to answer that.
Okay. I want you to assume that Miss Meyers has multiple notations in her chart of having poor judgment. Okay? I want you to assume that as a fact. Are you supposed to do anything about that when you take care of her?
What can I do about that?
Fair enough. After supper, did you notice whether Miss Meyers' judgment would begin to fray?
I usually wouldn't see Miss Meyers after dinner until about 7 because I assist in the less functioning dining room, and we eat dinner semi after they finish, so we're still feeding by the time they are done with dinner.
Okay. Let me ask it this way. Was her judgment as good at the time you put her to bed as it was at the beginning of your shift?
I didn't get to put her to bed that day.
He's talking about in general.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Can you re-say that?
Sure. In general, let's not talk, we'll get to the day of, but in general, was her judgment at the time you put her to bed as good as it was at the beginning of your shift when you first saw her?
I'd say it was. Yeah.
Did you ever notice whether she had sundowners?
No, she was always pleasant.
What do you understand sundowners to be?
Usually, what I've noticed in sundowners is they can get mean, real mean. That's how I'll put it. They can get nasty, say mean things, fight, hit other residents. Usually about that.
Okay. What do you understand sundowners to be, though?
I don't really know the real definition of sundowners, but what I've seen in the past is that they not themselves. They just kind of flip into jackal. I think that's the right person. I think, you know how you can have one face and then turn into another person? That's basically what I mean. Like night and day.
Have you ever been trained at Hickory Hills as to how to handle patients with sundowners?
Not fully as, no.
Well, you say not fully. That suggests to me maybe you've gotten some training. You gotten any training on it?
Not necessarily, because you can have sundowners and you cannot, and you only find that out once you hit the floor. Can't just tell a person, oh, they got sundowners. Be mindful, don't get hit in the face. Versus actually going to be right there with the resident, find out what they like, what they don't like, what triggers, what doesn't trigger, what's easy, what's not easy.
My question to you is, does anyone at the facility train you how to deal with a resident who has sundowners?
No.
Did anyone at Hickory Hills tell you whether Miss Meyers had sundowners?
No.
Never heard that mentioned in relationship to her name?
No.
Just like you never heard anyone mention that she had poor judgment, correct?
No.
What is fall potential?
Somebody that's a fall risk.
And describe for the arbitrator, what does that mean, fall risk?
A fall risk is someone that is likely to have incidents such as falling. They are likely to trip. They're likely to slide out their chair, roll out the bed. Be watchful of those people.
You would agree with me that one of the primary tasks at Hickory Hills is to prevent falls whenever possible.
Yes.
And you would also agree with me, wouldn't you, that some people have a greater fall potential than others?
Yes.
What was Miss Meyers' fall potential?
Standing up, I would say high, but sitting in her chair, none.
Is the resident's fall potential documented in the care plan for the patient, the resident?
Say that again.
Certainly. Is the resident's fall potential documented in the care plan?
As in, they are likely to fall or not fall? Like, is that what your question is?
Have you ever seen the term fall potential in a care plan?
Yeah. If they have fall risk, yeah, they're a fall risk.
What was Miss Meyers?
I didn't see one in there for her.
Did you check?
No, not as far as fall risk goes.
Are you trained at Hickory Hills as a caregiver to check the patient's records to see what their fall potential is?
If it's in the care plan, I would have seen it. But if it's not, I can't tell you.
Did you check Miss Meyers' care plan to see what her fall potential was?
I looked at everyone's care plan, yes.
What was her fall potential?
I don't remember. I don't know.
If her fall potential was high, how would that affect your care of Miss Meyers?
Be mindful when she's around and what she's doing.
Explain that to me, please.
So if she ever has a moment where she wants to stand up, try to redirect her to stay in her seat or to help her move to another chair if she's trying to go to another chair.
Would you agree with me that Miss Meyers was never supposed to be left in her room unattended outside of the bed?
Yes.
And you agree with me that if a patient has a high fall potential, there's a risk that they could fall and hurt themselves, couldn't they?
Yes.
And some patients could even develop a brain bleed and die, couldn't they?
Yes.
So it's a very serious matter to know what the patient's fall potential is, isn't it?
Yes.
And to make sure you do everything you can to minimize that fall potential, correct?
Yes.
Do you know what it means to personalize a fall precaution plan?
To create it?
Did anyone at Hickory Hills train you on what it means to personalize the fall precaution plan?
No.
Did you have a particular routine or order in which you provided assistance when you started your shift?
Yes.
Please describe that for me.
On any given day, I would clock in and go straight to the front nurse's station to find out what my assignment is for the evening. And once I figure out, I see who's on shift with me, and then I go straight to the back area because that's usually where I'm located anyway. And once I get back there, I check on my residents and start toileting. If I get a report that if they haven't been toileted yet, so I'll get those people and toilet them, or if they have been toileted, try to get an activity started for some of the residents that can do the activities, and wait for snack. So once snack gets there, take them to the dining room, bring all the residents over there, and let everyone eat their snacks. Sometimes we'll stay in there, do our activity in there, or we'll bring them back to I would kind of call it technically like a den area, like in a way. So bring them back to the den, and then we do something over there for them. Usually we try to let them chill out for a while, watch a movie or something. Then we'll take them back into the dining room because by then it's about 6:30, and we get them ready for dinner. It came to a point where we started serving them ourselves, placed the plates out, placed the cups, spoons, and forks, gave everybody a bib, made plates, gave it to them. And usually we try to have about four people back there, if any. Not if any, but about 4 people. So then whoever is sitting, because we had a lot of jury chairs and a lot of wheelchairs back there. So we would have them sometimes 4 to a table and 2 caregivers on the end, so we can assist feeding because nobody back there really fed themselves.
How many caregivers typically worked on your shift?
Depends on the day, so I say about 3 or 4.
How many caregivers are working on the day that Miss Meyers fell?
3.
How many nurses typically work during your shift?
Was that before the change? 2.
How many were working on the day that Miss Meyers fell?
2.
And what was the census that day?
I don't remember.
What's the typical census?
I would need to see documents. I really don't. I don't remember because it was residents going, coming. I couldn't tell you.
Where would Miss Meyers eat her dinner?
In the front dining room, Hickory. Oh, Hickory. Always one. Excuse me.
Did you know whether Miss Riley, Mary Beth here, had informed the facility that Miss Meyers' door was to always be kept locked when she wasn't in there?
Yes,
How'd you find out that?
because I talked to her. I always kept her door locked.
And was that protocol followed at the facility?
Yes.
Who kept the key to her room?
Either we had a master key at the nurse station, which always stayed up there. Nurses had a key. Caregivers had a key.
Okay, master had a key. Nurses had a key.
And caregiver.
Caregivers. And when I say masters, I mean a master key.
Yes.
Correct? Where was the master key kept?
At the front nurses station.
Gotcha. And where would the nurses keep their keys? They each of them have one
We all had our own personal keys.
on a keychain?
I kept mine on the keychain. Everybody else was pretty much different. You kept it however easiest, best for you.
Did Miss Meyers have access to a key?
No.
Could she unlock her door or lock her door?
No.
Do you know why Mary Beth asked for Miss Meyers' door to be locked?
She has dementia. She's a fall risk. And you just kind of don't want someone to go in a room.
What was that guy's name? You remember a resident named Bill who lived next to Miss
Yeah,
Meyers?
he tended to go in rooms and steal candy, and he was a big snacker. And he lived directly right in front of her. So sometimes he would go in the room, steal stuff, and take it back to his room.
Do you know whether that was one of the reasons why Miss Riley wanted to keep that door locked when Miss Meyers wasn't in there?
I don't know.
Do you know whether Bill went into Miss Meyers' room and stole any of her items?
He went in everyone's room. So more than likely, probably yes.
And what, just as a side note, what was your plan to deal with Bill going into everybody's room and stealing things?
Some people had written statements, don't lock their doors. Some did. So it depends on the facility as far as doors go. And as far as Bill goes, you just escort him out.
Okay. And he'd be in his underwear sometimes too, wouldn't he?
Yes, his pants were always too big. He had suspenders. So if he forgot to put them on, or no one put them on him, he'd tend to come out his pants.
Now let's talk about January 27, 2019, the day that Miss Meyers fell. What time did you clock in?
About 1:50.
And do you remember who the caregivers were who were there when you clocked in?
No. I remember one. Her name was Kylie.
Do you remember who the caregivers were who worked with you on your shift?
Sandy and Miss Deborah.
Okay. Now I may be mistaken. I thought Sandy Kemper was a nurse.
It was two Sandys. Sandy
Ah.
the caregiver and Sandy the nurse.
Gotcha. Do you know who Sandy the caregiver's last name is?
No.
And was Sandy Kemper the only nurse who was working that shift?
No.
Who else was working there that shift?
Carly, the nurse, I think I'm saying her name wrong. Miss Sandy was at the front
Uh-huh.
and Carly was in the back.
Okay. Do you know when Carly checked in?
No.
Do you know when Sandy checked in?
No.
I'm talking about the nurse.
No.
Was Sandy Kemper there when Miss Meyers fell?
I'm not sure.
Which caregiver did you receive a report from when you came on shift that day?
Carly, but it wasn't about my group.
Okay, explain that to me, please.
If you see a caregiver on your way out, you can give a report to anybody and they'll relay the message or they'll write it down for us to read.
Okay, did you get a report about Miss Meyers?
No.
Do you remember what time you first saw Miss Meyers?
It was about 3:30
And how do you know that?
because I came up to the front. It was snack time. I came back to the front. See, when I leave the front, I literally go straight to the back. I don't stop and do anything. I go straight to the back because I have a lot of high fall risk back there, so I usually go to the back. But I saw Miss Meyers about 3:30.
And what did you do when you saw her?
I looked at her and proceeded to, I cannot tell you what I was doing at the moment. I don't remember. But I just know I saw her and went back to the back.
That's all you remember.
Yes.
Okay. When was the next time you saw her?
Again at 4, it's like 4:15.
Tell me what you remember about that occasion.
She was in her wheelchair and she was walking down the hall. Like she used to sit and she slump all the way down. She was a long, slinky little lady. So she'd sit all the way down and she just pull herself in her wheelchair. And she was walking like towards her room.
Okay. Let's try to get as accurate as we can. She's obviously not walking, is she? Because that means she'd be up on 2 feet, right?
That's how I would describe it.
Okay. When I think of what you're saying, I'm thinking she's wheeling herself with her legs.
Well, you willing. Pretty much.
Does that sound about right?
Yes.
Okay. Where was she wheeling herself from?
I couldn't tell you.
Where was she wheeling herself to?
Close to her room because it was kind of coming down the hall.
What drew your attention to her?
I heard her voice.
And what'd she say?
She was talking to someone.
Okay. And what did you do?
I was in the back, so I didn't do anything. She was just talking. It was to another Well, the maintenance guy. She was just talking to him.
Okay. So you saw her.
Yes.
You heard her talking to a resident.
No, he's not a resident. He was maintenance.
Maintenance, I'm sorry. Talking to, who was it?
His name was Josiah.
Josiah. And what kind of maintenance work did Josiah do?
He basically cleaned the building. It just was mostly for the cleaning.
Is anything else that you recall about that episode at 4:15?
That was it.
Okay. And then I assume the next time you saw her is when you found her in her room. Is that
Yes.
right?
That's correct.
What does it mean to check on a patient every 2 hours?
You can check on a patient every 2 hours, see if they need anything, water, bathroom, if they're okay.
What I'd like you to do, Ms. Van, is I want you to tell the arbitrator everything you're supposed to do when you check on a patient every 2 hours.
Objection. You can answer.
As you understand it, okay? Maybe nothing. But as you understand it, what are you supposed to do when you check on a patient every 2 hours?
Objection. You can answer.
We don't have necessarily check on a patient every 2 hours. That's not a rule or a policy that we have. We can check on them per our discretion. So if I was to check on her every 2 hours, I would go up to Miss Meyers. I would ask her if she's okay, how she's doing, if she needs to go to the bathroom, if she's hungry and need a snack, or anything of the such and sort.
All right, let's back up and try it this way. How often are you supposed to check on a resident?
Per our discretion.
Well, what does that mean?
So, say for instance, if I have 13 residents, I go around and check on each of my residents within the time frame that I have.
What does that have to do with your discretion?
That's I don't know why I use that word. Maybe that's not the best word to use. My routine, I would say.
Okay, well, how often was your routine to check on the patient for resident?
However, I felt that I needed to check. However, my time allowed me to check on my residents.
So the number of times your routine allowed you to check on a resident was dictated by how much time you had?
I mean, yeah, if I was supposed to be somewhere, as far as being, because we had set times to be in the back. And mostly my time was in the back. I worked there. That's where most of my residents were, the back hall. So if I had a good 15 minutes to go check on Miss Meyers, I would go check on her within that 15 minutes. But then I would go check on Mr. Freeman, Mr. Al, Miss Nancy, Miss Cora, Miss Cora. I think that was her name. But yeah.
What's the purpose for checking on the resident?
To make sure they're okay, if they don't need anything.
Okay, what if the resident needs you to check on them, but you're too busy?
I can ask another caregiver to, or a nurse.
But how are you going to know it if you don't check on them?
You just said if I was with another resident, if I was busy at the time, was I busy with another resident? Then I can only thing I can do is finish what I was doing and get to that resident.
No, ma'am. What I mean is, if I understand what you're telling me, your routine on how often you check a patient depends on how many patients you've got to take care of that day.
Yes.
And so I imagine there'll be some times where you're too busy to check on a patient.
And that is when I could call for help. We have walkie-talkies, or I could pull the call cord for somebody to come.
Okay. How often do you do that?
It depends on the day, really.
What if a patient needs you to check on them? How do you know whether they need you?
That's why I do my rounds.
How often do you do your rounds?
When I'm able to.
See, that's where I'm having trouble understanding you. You say, I know when the patient needs me by doing my rounds, and then I ask you, how often do your rounds? And you say, well, whenever. I'm trying to figure out.
That's not what I said. I said when I'm able to. If I'm not with the resident and I can do my rounds, then I'll do my round. But if I'm with a resident, I got to do what I'm doing right then and there. Can't just leave them sitting on the toilet to go check on this person, that person, and then come back. Because by that time, this person could have fell off the toilet.
What's the minimum amount of times you're supposed to check on the patient
We
during your
don't have a
shift?
time.
So you can go an entire shift and not check on a patient?
I wouldn't say that, no.
Okay, then what can you say?
That I check on them when I check on them. So if I could check on Ms. Meyers at the beginning, I'll check on Ms. Meyers at the beginning. Then I'll go check on this person, that person.
Let me try it this way. Has there ever been a shift where you didn't check on Miss Myers?
No.
Has there ever been a shift where you've only checked on Miss Myers once?
I couldn't tell you.
Why?
Because that was a year ago. I move. Once I'm moving, I'm moving.
Okay. So there are times on your shift where you've only checked on her once.
Objection.
I
Objection.
didn't say that.
What are you saying? You just don't remember?
I don't remember.
And your testimony is that you're not supposed to check on at least once a shift,
I didn't.
correct?
Objection. You can answer.
You check on your residents.
Okay. Then you agree with me, you're at least supposed to check on them once, right?
Yes.
You agree with me, you're supposed to check on them twice? Yes or no?
Yes.
Do you agree you're supposed to check on them 3 times?
You can, yes.
Supposed to check on them 3 times during your shift?
It depends. It depends. Because if I'm in the back and there's another caregiver up front, she can check on them. I don't have to just check on that one resident all the time. We work as a team. So, therefore, if the resident needs help and there's someone there that can help them, they can help them. So, technically, if I'm not there to check on them, someone is.
Okay. Should a resident be checked on 3 times during their shift?
They
Whether it's
can
you,
be.
no, ma'am. Hear my question. Should a resident be checked on 3 times during their shift, whether it's you or any other caregiver or any other nurse?
We don't have set times.
So there's no minimum times a patient, a resident needs to be checked?
No.
Okay. Is that how you were trained at the facility?
Yes.
All right. Let's talk about incident reports. Tell me how you were trained with incident reports.
That was my first time doing an incident report.
Tell me how you were trained to do incident reports.
I wasn't trained to do incident reports. I just read it.
So your testimony is you worked at that facility how many months?
From July 2018 until
January of 2019. So over the course of 6 months, you never were trained on the incident reports at Hickory Hills.
I knew where they were.
That's not my question. We'll get to that. You're saying you weren't trained on incident reports, right?
No.
Correct?
Correct.
Okay. But you knew what they were,
Yes.
and what were they?
They were basically just the form that you filled out if anything was to ever happen on your shift. If you were, usually the first responder form.
For example, if somebody fell.
Yes.
And you're saying you had never filled out an incident report before, Ms. Meyers, correct?
Correct.
Would you agree with me the purpose of the incident report was to document what happened?
Yes.
And you agree with me the purpose of the incident report is to tell the truth,
Yes.
to answer all questions that you've been asked,
Yes.
to fill out the report correctly,
Yes.
honestly,
Yes.
fully.
Correct.
I'm going to hand you incident report. And let's focus, we're going to come to the first part later. Let's focus the part that says first responder, part you filled out. It's got your handwriting. You there with me?
I am.
Okay. top right-hand corner where it says 7:56, is that the time you're filling this out?
Yes.
What time did Miss Meyers, or what time did you discover Miss Meyers on the floor?
I can't remember.
Let's go to the left-hand side. Location of resident at the time of the incident. It says on the floor by the door. Is that your handwriting?
Yes.
And that's where she was, correct?
Yes.
And the floor was dry
Yes.
and the lights were on.
Yes.
And you reported she was lying by the door, knees bent, pants down, wheelchair in bathroom, correct?
Correct.
That's how you discovered her.
Yes.
What drew your attention to her?
Oh, can you rephrase that?
What made you go check on her?
It was about time for me to get ready to put her to bed. That was usually the time I put her to bed.
What time was that?
I usually go get her about 7:30-ish,
Okay.
something like that.
Okay. Her door was shut, correct?
Shut and locked.
Okay. So you wouldn't be able to hear her, would you?
No.
So you walked in and you saw her in this condition, and then you've got pressed emergency button, called for nurse. Explain to me what you mean by that.
When you walk in the rooms, there's a button right here that it's an emergency. You just push it, and it sounds off a loud beeping noise for all caregivers, nurses, whoever's on floor to come help.
And then it says, asked if she was okay and waited for help. Is that right?
Yes.
What'd she tell you?
She said, "Give me up.
She said what?
Help me up."
And did you help her up?
I couldn't move her
Why?
because you're not supposed to. It's protocol. Don't move them because you don't know if anything's injured. She could have broke something, hit her head, so I needed to wait till the nurse got there.
So what did you tell her when she asked you to get her up?
I told her, "In a second, I'll get you up."
Okay. And then what happened after that?
I waited for the nurse.
Okay. And what was she doing while you were waiting on the nurse?
She just kept saying, "Get me up."
How many times she said, get me up?
Maybe about 3 times.
Was she in pain?
She seemed like it, yes.
How long did it take for someone to come in the room?
I had to go get the nurse.
How long did you wait before you went to go get the nurse?
Say about a minute, 2 minutes.
Minute to 2 minutes? Okay. And so you left her.
I did.
Did you tell her you were leaving to go get a
I
nurse?
told her I'll be right back.
Okay. And then you went and got Nurse Willis?
Who is Willis?
Carly?
Yes.
And where was Carly?
Sitting at the nurse's station.
Okay. And what'd you tell Carly?
"I need you to come now. Miss Meyers is on the floor."
And what did Carly do?
She got up and came with me to the room.
Okay. Did she walk or did she run?
She walked.
Did you walk or did you run?
I was pacing, quickly pacing down to the
Okay.
room.
You agree you need to be in a hurry, right?
I was pregnant.
Okay. But you need to be in a hurry.
Yes.
And you got into the room, and what did Miss Meyers say when you walked back in there?
Help me up.
Okay. Did you help her up then?
We couldn't move her. She
Why?
needed to do an assessment to make sure that she was okay.
She, being Carly, needed to do an assessment?
Yes, the nurse.
Okay. And so tell me what Miss Meyers was saying as Carly was doing an assessment.
Her speech started to slur, and she still kept saying, "Get me up."
Okay. Because you noted her speech was slurred on here. So that's when it became slurred?
Mm-hmm.
How long did Carly's assessment take, approximately?
I couldn't give you that answer.
Minute? 2 minutes?
I really don't know.
Probably seemed like forever, didn't it?
In a way, yeah.
Because she was hurting, wasn't she? That's a yes, isn't it?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Who called 911?
Carly?
And how did Carly call 911?
I don't know. I stayed in the room
Well, how do you know she called 911?
because the EMTs and the EMTs, fire truck, and 911 came into the building.
Okay. So you assume she called 911.
Yes.
How long did it take 911 to get there?
I couldn't give you a time frame. I just know they showed up.
That probably seemed like an eternity too, didn't it? Yes?
Yes.
And she's still sitting there saying, get me up?
She actually stopped talking for a second. It was just more groaning than anything.
Groaning in pain?
Yeah.
All over her body? That's a yes?
Yes.
How was Carly doing an assessment? I'm sure you observed it.
I was actually holding Miss Meyers' hand. I wasn't really paying attention to Carly. My focus was on Miss Meyers.
And what were you focused on?
The fact of just comforting her, trying to figure out how she even got in the room.
Okay. I'm asking the wrong question. What were you looking at?
I was just looking at her in general.
Okay.
Just Miss Meyers.
Did you see any discoloration on her body?
Her face
What did her face look like?
started turning purple.
Okay, and what side?
Can't tell you. I don't know.
Was there anything you could do to give her pain relief while she was sitting there on that floor groaning in pain?
No.
What happened when 911 got there?
I stepped back and they did what they needed to do. Started to assess and got her up on the gurney. Is that what it's called, a gurney?
Your description's fine.
Yes, a gurney. And they were asking questions to make sure, asking contact information so they can get her correctly to the right
I'm
place.
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm finished now.
I didn't hear that last
Oh, to get contact information and take her to the right hospital.
Now, while we're on the subject, tell Mr. K, how did they get her into the stretcher?
Yeah, I don't really remember. It's a blur. It's been a year. I don't remember.
Did you see her body when they got her up into the stretcher?
On the stretcher or in the actual vehicle?
Well, we'll start first with the stretcher. When they were lifting her up and got her in there, did you see her body?
I did.
What'd you see?
Discoloration in her face. There's just the simple fact that she was in pain.
Miss Willis said she noticed that Miss Meyers was purple from her wrist to her elbow. Did you see that?
I didn't. I wasn't paying attention to that.
Fair enough. Now, did you get a look at her body when she was in the ambulance?
No.
Did you ever get a look at her body before she left, other than what you've already said?
When they were rolling her down the hallway, I just saw her then, but that was it.
And what'd you see?
Just her rolling down. They put a blanket over and rolled her down the hallway.
She's still groaning in pain?
Yeah.
Fair to say she didn't get any pain relief before she left the facility that you saw, correct?
Yeah.
That's a no?
No, she didn't get any pain.
Was that the last time you saw her that day before she left?
Yes.
Rolling out to the ambulance?
That was the last time I saw her.
Now, let's go back to this form here. You've got, does the resident use A, and you've got checked off walker/during therapy. Do you see that?
I do.
And you've also got checked off wheelchair. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And then the next one was the resident using the assistive device at the time of the incident? You've got checked off no, correct?
Correct.
Is the assistive device the wheelchair?
It is.
All right. Go to the next one. If using a wheelchair where the brake's locked and you don't have that checked, why is that?
Because I don't know.
Did you check?
I didn't. I just went, the wheelchair and her were completely apart from each other.
How far apart?
She was next to the door and the wheelchair was in the bathroom.
Okay. I've seen the pictures, but can you tell Mr. K approximately how far the wheelchair was from her body when you saw her?
I can't give you the exact feet, but they were, say from about right there where that plug is to maybe a little bit where this floor plug is.
Okay. Across the room.
Pretty much.
All right. Now, you've got checked off here, was the assisted device working properly? No.
I checked that because she wasn't using it.
So you don't know whether it was working properly?
No.
And you didn't check either, did you?
I put no. I checked no.
Right. You didn't check the wheelchair to see if it was working properly, correct?
No.
And of course, you know the motion sensor alarm was not on, correct?
That is correct.
And you agree it should have been on, shouldn't it?
Yes.
She had her slip-on shoes when you found her?
Yes.
All right, go to the next page. Now, there's a place here where you can describe what the resident was before the incident. Do you see all these categories here from calm to other?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Why didn't you fill that out?
I wasn't thinking about it, honestly. I was just moving. That's all I can tell you. I was moving.
Moving what?
My mind was racing.
Okay. Because you answered all the rest of the blocks. You see that?
Yes,
So I'm just trying to figure out why you missed this one in particular.
I couldn't tell you.
Okay. You've got in the box over to the right, complained of pain everywhere. Is that accurate?
Yes,
Okay. Is that what she told you?
that's what she told me.
And then you've got time resident last toileted NA. What does that mean?
That means I don't know.
When was Miss Meyers last toileted that day?
I don't know. I didn't get a report on her, and I wasn't able to get to her to toilet her.
Did it appear to you when you discovered her in the room that she was either trying to get to the bathroom or coming from the bathroom?
Objection. You can answer.
Or any other?
I would say she was trying to come from the bathroom only because she walked out of the bathroom. Or wasn't in the bathroom, might I say, because I don't know if she walked.
All right. Because I'm trying to figure out what her briefs are doing around her knees.
I want to know the same thing.
Do you know whether she'd ever been discovered like that before at the facility?
No, I don't know.
Is that something you'd want to know as a caregiver?
I would like to know, yes.
You'd expect the staff at the facility to tell you that, wouldn't you?
I really would, yes.
Do you know whether she'd been discovered close to the bathroom before with her briefs down by her knees, having fallen at the facility before January 27th?
I don't know.
And you'd want the facility to tell you that too, wouldn't you?
I would.
Help you to provide better care for her, correct?
You're right.
Objection.
And I will make sure we're clear where you've got time resident last observed or checked on before the incident. You've got 4:15, right?
That's when I seen her wheeling herself down
Okay.
the hall.
So you observed her, but you didn't check on her at that time, right?
Basically, yes.
And then what was the resident doing when last seen?
I put walking, but we discussed wheeling.
Okay. So when you use the term walking here, you mean she's wheeling herself with her feet on her, with her wheelchair.
Yes.
All right. Now, you remember Carly Willis coming to you and asking you questions about what happened?
She never came to me. We were in the room.
Okay. Did she ever come to you and ask you what happened?
No.
Who did come to you and ask you what happened?
No one.
No one came to you and asked you what happened.
No.
That's your testimony under oath.
That is my testimony under oath.
Okay. Can you tell me why Carly Willis would say that you were asked about what happened?
Can you ask me that again?
Can you tell me why Carly Willis would say under oath she asked you what happened?
I'm guessing she would ask me what happened. I'm not understanding your question.
I'm trying to understand why the person who's filling out the incident report wouldn't ask you what happened.
Because we were in the room and I told her, I don't know how she got here.
Okay, so you did tell her that. What else did you tell her?
That was it. I don't know how she got here. I unlocked the door and she was right here. I don't know how she got in here. I haven't seen her to be able to let her in this room, is what I told her.
Did you know Carly Willis was filling out an incident report?
No.
Well, how did you get the first responder section?
She gave me mine.
And what did she tell you?
Fill this out.
And didn't tell you that she was filling out an incident report?
No.
So you didn't know that this was some type of investigation, is that right?
No.
And You didn't have a conversation with Kay Holmes?
No, she sent me home.
Where was Kay Holmes?
Honestly, I don't know when she got there. I know when I was coming off the first wing of the hall, she said, get your stuff and go home.
But where was she, though?
As far as
When
after
she told you to get your stuff and
she
go
was
home,
standing in front of the front nurse's station.
what was she doing?
I don't know where she was going. I just know I was walking past her.
So, out of the blue, this nurse tells you to get your stuff up and go home.
Not out of the blue. I'm guessing she was coming up the hall. I'm not sure where she was coming from. I just know when I was coming down the hall, she told me to get my stuff and go home.
Did you say, why are you sending me home?
No, it was past 10 o'clock, and I figured more than likely this is what was going on with the incident that happened is why I was going home.
So when Carly Willis writes on January 27, 2019, in the incident report, quote, I questioned the caregiver assigned Meyers. She stated she hadn't seen the resident all day. That's just a lie, right?
Yes.
And when she writes, I had her write a statement and fill out the first responder form, that's accurate, isn't it?
Yes.
Do you know whether she called Marcy?
That was, I figured she would have. She was the director of nursing.
Who'd you give the first responder form to?
I sat it at the front nurse's station
Where?
with Carly.
With Carly?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you say anything to Carly when you gave it to her?
No,
Did you hand it to her or did you just lay it down?
I gave it to her.
Gave it to her. How long did it take you to finish it?
I mean, with everything going on, I just filled it out. I'm not entirely sure on how long it took me.
Okay. What'd you do after you gave her the first responder form?
I continued to do my job. I still had residents that were sitting up.
And what did Carly do?
I'm not sure after that. I didn't see her.
Did Kay Holmes tell you that you were being sent home for abuse and neglect of patients?
No. She just sent me home. She said, you need to get your things and go home.
Okay, so she's lying about that too, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. 2 eyewitnesses
2 eyewitnesses on what?
at the facility.
Kay wasn't there when it happened.
Eyewitnesses to what?
Eyewitnesses to what you said to her and what she said to you.
Who?
Let me make sure I understand the facts. You spoke to Carly Willis, correct?
About?
This incident.
I handed Carly the paper, yes.
And you told her what happened when she came in the room. What you had seen.
This happened, I filled this out after Meyers left. Me and Carly was in the room and I told her I don't know how she got in this room. That was all the discussion was. She came to me and gave me this paper. I filled it out. I handed it back to her. I continued to do my job. About 10 or so after, Kay came to me as I was walking down the hall to go get another resident. You need to get your things and leave.
And you didn't say anything to her. You just walked right on out of the facility.
'Cause what else can I do?
Like, what are you sending me home for?
I just had a fall. An unexplained fall. I don't know how she got in there. I knew I was getting sent home.
Why would you be sent home for an unexplained fall?
Because I was the caregiver. It doesn't matter if I opened the door or didn't. I was the caregiver.
Well, why does that mean you're at fault?
Yo,
Objection.
I'm just asking.
I don't know.
What you're thinking in your mind, your state of mind, you seem to be suggesting that you're at fault.
no,
Objection.
I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just telling you what was told to me that night. She sent me home.
And your thought is, I'm being sent home because I'm the caregiver and this lady fell on my watch.
Yes.
She fell on Carly Willis's watch too, didn't she?
If that's what you want to say, yes.
Well, was it?
Yeah, she was the nurse.
Why wasn't Carly Willis sent home?
I don't know.
So you go home. When was the next time you came back to the facility?
I can't give you the exact date. I don't know.
Day, week, month?
I would be guessing if I said that. I don't know. I would have to see documentation.
Well, tell me what happened. When was the first contact you had with somebody at Hickory Hills after you were sent home?
I can't remember if I called or if I called to ask what was going on.
Who'd you call?
I called Marcia. No, Marissa. One of the two.
Were you scheduled to work the next day?
I was,
Why didn't you show up for work?
because they told me don't return until I talk to somebody.
Okay, so now we got something else we've added. First it was just grab your stuff and go home. Now it's grab your stuff and go home and don't return to the facility until somebody calls you?
Objection.
Yes.
Who told you that?
Okay.
Anything else Kay told you that we haven't covered? Is that a no?
No.
Okay. And so after a certain period of time that you can't remember, you decide, I got to pick up the phone and call somebody, right?
Say that again.
You decide to call who?
I called the facility to talk to an administrator.
Okay. And tell me about that conversation.
She told me to come in, and I sat down with Marissa and Marcia in their office and told them what happened.
And what did they tell you?
They let me come back.
Where were Carly and Kay, do you know?
I have no idea.
Did you ever see them again at the facility?
I don't remember.
Did you ever work with them at the facility again?
I don't remember.
You still work at Hickory Hills?
I do.
What's your shift?
Now it's 11 to 7.
Let's make that the first responder form, the first exhibitor testimony.
Well, there's other documents attached to this. It's an incident report
Let's rip that part up.
and Willis's
Since she-
statement.
Let's rip. I'll tell you what let's do. I think I've got.
You just want first responder report?
Yep. Yep. She can't identify the others. Okay, let me read some things to you and see if you can verify these things, Miss Van. At 7:30 p.m., Maisha came up the hall stating, and I presume Miss Meyers is what's blanked out here, was on the floor. Does that time sound roughly correct?
Yes.
Okay. She walked in and observed the resident lying on her left side, head towards the door, knees bent with pants down. That's accurate, isn't it?
Head towards which door?
It just says door.
If it's the bathroom door, then yes, that's correct.
Okay. Unable to tell if resident hit head. You wouldn't know whether that's accurate, would you? What she knows. You don't know what she knows.
Oh, no,
there.
I don't know what
Right,
she knows.
Right.
And hold up, she being, you're reading from Carly Willis.
Correct. She ain't going to know what Carly Willis thought.
Okay.
Did not want to move her until EMS arrived. That's accurate, isn't it?
Yes.
Do you know whether Carly contacted Marcy Patterson?
No.
Do you know whether Carly contacted Mary Riley?
No. Oh, I mean, yes, because that's family.
So that's accurate, correct?
Yes.
We know Miss Myers got sent to the hospital. That's accurate, isn't it?
Yes.
She says one police officer, firefighters, and 3 EMTs arrived at the building. Is that accurate?
Yes.
They put the resident on a stretcher. That's accurate, isn't it?
Yes.
She said she saw multiple hematomas to the left eye and side of the face. That seems accurate because you said you saw it was purple, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then when she says, I questioned the caregiver assigned Meyers, she stated she hadn't seen the resident all day. You say that's inaccurate, correct?
She didn't question me.
She says, I had her write a statement and fill out the first responder form. That is accurate, though, isn't it?
That is accurate, yes.
And then she says her statements did not match what she said to me verbally. I assume you'd say that's inaccurate, correct?
Yes.
All right. Let me take a break. I'm going to talk to my client here. I'm rounding the edge here.
Coming off the record, time on the monitor is 4:17. We are back on the record, time on the monitor is 4:26.
Miss Van, did you ever see Miss Meyers again after she went to the hospital?
Like, as in when I came back?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. How many times?
Maybe twice. I went to her room the day I came back, sit with her, talk to her, and then I went in her room before she passed away.
Okay. Do you remember her condition when you saw her that first time?
Heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking.
What'd you see?
She was laying in the bed, hooked up to machines, not talking. She actually looked asleep.
And then the second time?
It was the same thing.
Miss Van, if you knew that Miss Meyers had fallen in September and October, 3 or 4 months before January, and one time she had fallen and had to have stitches in her head. The other time she fell, she broke her pelvis. Would you ever let her out of your sight?
Objection.
Assuming you knew that.
I was gonna say, I don't know. Assuming I knew that,
Right.
yeah, I would keep more of a watchful eye.
Would you also agree with me that whoever put Miss Meyers in her room knew or should have known there was a risk she could fall?
Objection.
I can't say what somebody else would do.
But you knew there was that risk, correct?
I know there would be a risk of putting her in her room, yes.
Can you think of any way she got into that room other than someone letting her in?
Objection.
No.
Is someone at the facility, and I say someone, I'm either a caregiver or a nurse, supposed to be keeping an eye on Miss Meyers at all times before she goes to bed?
Yes.
Would you agree with me that what Miss Meyers was wearing when you discovered her on the floor was not her bedtime clothing?
Yes.
It was or it wasn't?
I was agreeing it wasn't her bedtime clothing.
Right. Ms. Van, that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
No questions.
This marks the end of the deposition. Going off the record, time on the monitor is 4:30.